Up against Domain. What do you like for this matchup? Of course, Gabriel Nicholas being on the play going to be advantage from this point, but what do you like as this matchup, as a whole?
This is a very tough matchup for Oculus.
Okay.
Where the Oculus deck is doing powerful things. Putting in Oculus into play, prosthetic memory, but they're kind of like scaling things. Where they're really good against the red decks, red-based removal spells, where you're sizing up your creatures, you're avoiding combat in the ground, you're putting an Oculus into play, which is a powerful threat. But the Domain deck just kind of goes so far over the top of what the Oculus deck is doing, and the Oculus deck isn't aggressive enough to push the issue, where the Oculus deck's not going to kill that fast. That being said, back from the Pro Tour, Oculus deck has gained the Mako as well as Tursa.
Yeah.
So there are some potential for a little more aggressive draws. But on the whole, Domain, as long as the Domain player can get into turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, strongly favored from that point. So a lot of pressure on Gabriel to get the game going and really close this game out.
Okay. Makes sense to me. And Domain, something that's been quietly showing up. Maybe it was 4th, 5th on our leaderboard as far as most played decks. But hey, if Izzet Prowess isn't, the godsend of the deck like everyone was kind of thinking going into it, maybe the metagame shifts in such a way where it gets a little bit slower and our overlords become our new overlords once again,
Yeah, kind of the anti-anti deck, right?
Yeah.
Overlord's very, very good against all the decks trying to beat Izzet.
Yeah.
A deck like Oculus here is a good example as well, but the Orzhov Pixie decks almost just can't beat Domain. They're trying to lock down their own hopeless nightmares, and Domain's just like, I'm just going to draw 5 cards off Beanstalk and just do my thing. So
Stark did beat Domain at the Pro Tour.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, he really did. But
wow.
I mean, he was saying the same, like this shouldn't have happened, you know. But yeah, I mean, it is wild to me because Domain just went 1-2-3 at a Pro Tour. Yep. And for it to go to a deck that people were saying no. When I was talking to players, as we always do before this event, the consensus was, I can't play Domain. Izzet Prowess is too good. It's too fast. It takes you down. And it's like, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. But number one, that's not going to be the entire metagame. And number two, you can probably build your deck in such a way where you can deal with a bunch of tokens and stuff like that.
For sure, yeah. And the deck is also just intrinsically very powerful.
Yeah.
Going turn 2 Beans, turn 3 Green Overlord is just an unbelievable way to start a game Magic.
Yeah, and we just saw it here. I mean, had the draw here from Aaron Ward, and, really, really impressive stuff. Hard to beat, especially when you're on the play. Going into Aaron's 5th turn here. See what the follow-up is. I know what I would want to be doing if I was, in this spot would be, up the Beanstalk into White Overlord, get some flying blockers here. That'd be solid. But, hey, Zur, animate an Overlord, that's probably better.
Yeah, I was taking a sip of water here, so I was getting to saying it, the threat of Zur is just always looming in this deck.
Yeah.
And the card is just so powerful. Lifelink. And then the cool thing, too, is that, even though in that exchange we saw a trade, and everywhere came in, 5 life was gained, Zur's still in play.
Yeah.
Just so many good exchanges from Zur.
There's no card I hate losing to more than Zur Eternal Schemer. Let me tell you, just because there's no one clear answer. Of course, I mean, there's probably plenty that you can figure out, but one removal spell doesn't stop the problem. It stops the lifelink, but you just animated an Overlord ahead of schedule, and it's attacking me regardless,
It's one of those cards that's good early and late, too,
yeah.
Where you can play it on turn 4 off a Green Overlord.
Yeah.
But then, as you saw at the Pro Tour Finals, on turn 10, when you have enough mana to activate it 4 times, all of a sudden the board just comes to life and attacks you for 20 lifelink out of nowhere. So the rare card, good early and late.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you see someone who's as good at math has to redo his math multiple times, Yep. That was, of course, crazy finals.
Yeah, if you haven't watched the Pro Tour Finals, you're missing out.
Yeah, it was quite fun. All right, Oculus hits the battlefield. It gets a counter on it. I assume it's not a negative counter, but we're probably just using the wrong dice. That's okay.
All right, pop quiz. What in the world was just put into the graveyard?
Oh, yes, of course. That is, I'm going to guess a Magic card. Am I right? Am I close?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, that might be a different game. You never know. Yeah, no clue. We'll let you figure that out, Chad. But regardless, it probably wasn't a creature. Ah. All right, that was the Spark Hunter.
Tursa?
Yeah. Oh, Chandra.
Oh, Chandra.
Okay. Oh.
All right.
All right, the Planeswalker there. Okay.
Big ups to our director for helping us out.
Yeah. All right, here is the Scholar. Going to draw some cards. Now, worst case scenario, you can put those 2 counters on your 2/2 Manifest token and at least get in there for 4. But the Leyline Binding to deal with the Oculus, obviously really great. And now at any point, yeah, as I say that, at any point you can animate it, turn it into a 6/6 and block. So this 2/2 will have to get a little bigger if you want to start challenging the Leyline Binding in combat.
Yeah, there is some inherent risk, of course, in animating the Binding where there's an Oculus under it.
Yeah.
So if it were to die in combat or something like that, giving back an Oculus is tough. But the hexproof on Zur, and then the fact that there isn't really like a ton of like direct kill spells and stuff in this deck that isn't like damage based or whatever else, maybe destroy evil, stuff like that, means it's reasonably safe as a creature.
Yeah.
As long as you are too frisky.
Exactly.
We see a Day Judgment in hand for Aaron though, and looks to be setting up, kind of the spot that Domain puts you in a lot of the time where Domain puts some stuff in play, you really got to overcommit to try and overcome it, and there it is.
Yeah. End step Ride's End on the Vigilance creature, so maybe you had to pay full retail for that anyways.
That is a cute interaction,
Yeah.
Vigilance against Ride's End.
Yeah.
So Aaron declining on the Day Judgment, saying, I'll just kill one thing at a time. And then maybe now it's to fire out the Binding, or just another Overlord.
Hey, that's pretty good.
That works too.
That's a pretty good draw. Yeah, and I suppose it's pretty free to just impending this. It's going to come to life here real quick.
It's actually an upside where you get a 7/7 rather than a 6/6.
Oh, yeah, good point, good point. Yeah, so this looks like a game that you got to think, how on earth could Gabriel actually win this one?
Yeah, and that's the thing, where the Oculus deck is doing powerful things, but they're somewhat incremental,
Yeah.
Profs makes your creatures bigger more slowly. If you get an Oculus in play, you get a 2/2 every turn, but a 2/2 every turn or a few counters here or there are nothing compared to 7 power lifelinkers making an army of 2/1 flyers and everything else going on.
It's just so overpowered, and Gabriel Nicholas, both has been here before, recognize the clock, recognize, hey, I've played a lot of these type of games, and, maybe I win that 0.5% of those games, but in this situation, with 14 minutes left on the clock, plenty of time for Game 3, but if we got down to 8 or something, we would have to actually kind of worry about it. So, heading to Game 3 here, what do you like from the sideboard from either of these players here, Jim?
It's interesting that Gabriel actually won game 1, which is the hard game for sure.
It does seem tough, yeah.
But post-sideboard, Gabriel's got access to a Chandra Spark Hunter, which is a card we found to be very useful in this matchup where it's a threat. It's not like your typical Planeswalker threat where it's meant for incremental advantage.
Yeah.
It's an aggressive threat. It just makes a 3/2 vehicle every turn, gives it haste, and the Planeswalker itself does not get hit by Lockdown, Day of Judgment, Sunfall, any of that stuff. So it sticks around and can attack again the next turn, which is great. Destroy Evil is very important also. These disenchant effects are huge. Disable Stroke, Exercise, Loran, a few other tools, Negate, No More Lies. So there are some counter spells, there are some disenchants, the Chandras for more sticky threat, but these are all, they're good, and they can certainly do that role, but they're half measures.
Yeah.
But they're certainly putting a Band-Aid in the problem.
Makes sense. All right, y'all, we're going to take this moment to tell you about our next event here. Just in a couple weeks, we're going to be heading for our RC Championship #2. U.S. does have 2 of these as well. They're so large. We started with a ton of players at this event. We started with a solid 1,336 players, and, we are cut down to 328. So imagine if we had just one of these RCs, they'd probably be 2,000 plus. So nice to be able to break these up. The next one is going to be May 16th to the 18th. You can go to starcitygames.com/SCGCon to get some more information for this. If you're not qualified, come in, play some LCQs, as well as there is a ton of different stuff to do. I mean, if you want to play the Mystery Sealed and beat Jim Davis Friday morning, I feel like you're always there.
It's becoming a tradition, actually. Me and the 10:30 Mystery Sealed on Friday. It ends right before our production meeting.
Yeah.
And I played the one in Charlotte, played the one here in where are we? Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I'll probably play one in Hartford as well.
Yeah, and he's just giving away wins in there, y'all. Just absolutely giving them away.
Whoa, wait a minute. All right. If you're not going to come play with me, you can't be throwing shade.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm scared. You know, I know I'm going to give away wins, so I stayed in my lane here. So, all right, getting it started. Gabriel Nicholas has the Prof's Identic Memory, but you really want that to have a creature in play. You know, you want to have a creature on one so it starts getting boosted up. Otherwise, you're playing up the Beanstalk, but a way less exciting version half the time.
Yeah, like we were saying, the Oculus has to get on the board and has to get in quickly before Beanstalk and everything else in this domain that kind of gets going. To be fair, Steam Core Scholar is a good threat here.
And Discard Oculus is great.
It does dodge Riot's End, which is kind of cool. It demands a more specific answer, and Binding is not always reliable on these early turns. So Scholar could get in for a nice chunk here, but Gabriel's going to need to have a very solid follow-up, be it Counterspell, Planeswalker, or Disenchants, kind of to keep things going here. Fast Oculus would be great, too.
On the other side, Aaron did not have the go-to start here this time to be able to play impending the Green Overlord, and doesn't have a lockdown or something. How good is lockdown from the domain side against this deck? Like, is it something people should have a couple of, or is it all four of? Like, it seems perfectly terrible and great in different contextual situations, you know?
I think, on the draw, I could see having a few copies.
Okay.
There are some cheap spells in this deck, but as you can see here, there are a lot of non-cheap things, too.
Yeah.
Not a card I want to rely on.
Okay. Oculus dying just immediately.
An amusing interaction here is that while Riot's End is very poor against Steam Core Scholar, it is very excellent against Helping Hand.
Yeah.
Which conveniently puts creature into play tap for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a very good point. All right, I see another Up the Beanstalk coming into play. I saw Zur in the hand. Now it'll just be this classic game with Domain, like, hey, you don't have the Green Overlord. Does your deck function? You know, these are a certain percentage of games that happen with Domain.
Yeah, the Green Overlord is certainly easy mode.
Yeah. All right, sacking a map on the Mako. And we got an Exercise. Going to give that one a read. Able to destroy some, exile some enchantments, some big creatures, some artifacts. Pretty flexible card.
Yeah, I mean, not too shabby, honestly. I'm interested to see this mill here, because if Gabriel wants to map again, typically the map pattern is often hit a spell. Even if you don't want it, you leave it there till all your maps are exhausted and then mill it.
Unless you want land.
True. But in this spot, damage output is really, really important.
True.
But going to say one map probably has other things to do with mana. That's a good attack, you know?
Yeah, very strong attack. This is forcing some action.
Whew.
And, if the first Helping Hand doesn't work, go for the second one. And, hey, I mean, this is kind of the cost of Aaron. I want to say we saw Rides End in hand this game. Maybe not, but, if we did not Rides Ending the Oculus, instead Get Losting, I would imagine we would have Rides End. So that was probably last game.
Yeah, and the issue here now, Gabriel's navigated the game into a spot where one counterspell ends the game.
Yeah.
One No More Lies, one Negate, and one Disdainful Stroke in the board. A couple Spell Pierce main also.
Yeah.
And there's enough power in play where this game is over next turn.
Yeah.
Aaron spent a little too much time playing Beanstalks and Taplands and not enough time interacting with the board. Even though Gabriel's draw wasn't that fast, we're seeing what this deck does. It makes an incremental advantage. Makes some things bigger, put Oculus in play, and there you go.
And there it is, Disdainful Stroke on the Overlord. I don't think there's anything that can happen. Aaron's going to draw 2 cards. I guess you can get a land. Elspeth Smite is the best possible thing, but that is not enough. Gabriel Nicholas is 9 and United Airlines here so far.